Hi there, it's Kathleen Manning from the Pacifica Historical Society and host of tonight's show, Footprints of Pacifica. This is the show where we explore and discover the lure and lore of lovely Pacifica, its character and characters. Tonight we have a very special guest in studio, Mr. Dave Crimmen. And Dave is known around Pacifica very much because he's a musician and he's played all over town. However, he has a secret life. He's an historian. Plus, he's also written one book and has two more in process. So we want to welcome you to the show, Dave.
Kathleen, thank you for having me.
Well, now this is a copy of the book that I mentioned. This is a book that Dave wrote called Broadmoor Village. Dave, tell me about these people on the cover.
Okay, if you look at the cover on the left, the shortest guy here, that's my nephew Joe. And this fellow over here on the right, that's my older brother Ray. And that's me in the middle. This is a photo my sister Arlene, my eldest sister, took of us outside our house in February of 1959.
Wow.
It's been a week or two.
Doesn't seem that long ago to me.
It's been a week or two. I was a little shorter.
Well, we'll come back to the book. But I want to ask you a few other things about your background. Where were you actually born?
I was born in San Francisco, St. Joseph's Hospital, which is now no longer a hospital, it's condominiums, and raised in Broadmoor Village. My parents bought the house in Broadmoor in the summer of '54, about a little over a year before I was born.
Oh.
And my father was in the United States Navy for 30 years.
Is this a picture here?
That's a picture of my mom and my dad from about 1941. Daddy was a chief in the Navy. Used to brag that he was the highest of the lowest. That's as high as you could be as an enlisted man in the Navy at that time, was to be a chief. And that's my mom and my dad. And my Aunt Bertha took that picture.
So did a lot of veterans move to Broadmoor?
The Broadmoor Village and Westlake and several areas here in Pacifica, which were being developed right after World War II, and a lot of veterans were coming home from the Pacific Theater and wanted to settle here in California and could get GI loans.
And here's another picture here.
Another one taken by my Aunt Bertha at the same time as the last one. Over here, this is my oldest sister Arlene, and over here is my second oldest sister Phyllis, who is technically my godmother.
Well,
Because when I was born after this, there was nobody else around, so Mom volunteered her. Broadmoor Village in 1955 was really out in the boondocks. Nowadays, it's surrounded by Daly City, and many folks think it's part of Daly City, and it's not. But so there wasn't that many folks around. So that's how my sister got the job.
Here's another picture.
This is a fabulous picture. My brother just discovered this picture 2 weeks ago. And it was behind another picture of my father, and it had been mushed into this frame since 1941. This was a postcard that was sent to my oldest sister, Arlene. Her birthday's in November, and this was sent to her on her birthday in November of 1941. So this picture was taken about 3 weeks before Pearl Harbor. It's my dad and his what are called the Navy dress white uniform. It's for people that, it's for summertime or people that work in the tropics.
So it looks like there's a grass hut or something.
Yeah, we figured that was a backdrop that was used, a prop.
So he was he there at Pearl Harbor when the bombing took place?
He was on a destroyer escort called the USS Craven, and that was a destroyer escort assigned to Admiral Bull Halsey, who was on the aircraft carrier the Enterprise. And they were sent off to Wake Island to drop off Marine fighter pilots, and had come back to Pearl Harbor at 11 o'clock in the morning, 4 hours after it was bombed.
Wow.
So they just missed it by a few hours.
Oh, that's amazing. And what about this one?
This is my dad in 1947 when he became a warrant officer, which is, warrant officers are somewhere in between commissioned officers and chiefs. They really run the Navy, and they're kind of in a no man's land, and even admirals don't mess with them.
So was your dad a career?
Yeah. He was 30 years in the Navy.
30
yeah.
years in the Navy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
then this last one?
This is my favorite one. This is in 1950 or 51 when my family was living in Marin City, and Dad was called back for Korea. And they wanted him to go down to San Diego and, quote, push boots, end quote. In other words, train recruits. And Dad went into the commanding officer, and only a chief or a warrant officer would get away with this, and told him where to stick it. And he said, you either give me a job that I know or send me back to my family. So they put him back down to being a chief from a warrant officer, probably because it was a paying billet for a chief on the light cruiser USS Helena. And that was the flagship for the fleet in Korea.
Okay. We have just a few more pictures here.
Oh!
Now, I wanted this. Who is this?
That's me. Here we go. January of 1959. So that's about, this one over here, that's about a month before the picture that, or actually that's Christmas, so about 2 months before the picture from the cover of the book. And that is actually my first guitar. That's really a Mickey Mouse guitar.
Yeah, but we are holding it backwards.
A lot of folks have asked about that, and that's because when I'd see Elvis Presley on TV, the guitar would be facing that way. I didn't realize that he was turned around looking at a camera, so I just wanted to be like Elvis, you know.
So that was like from when you were just tiny, you wanted to be like Elvis.
Oh yeah, before my sisters were bringing home records by Little Richard and Elvis Presley before I was in kindergarten, and I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was traumatized in kindergarten when they wanted me to sing "Row, Row, Row Your Boat."
Well, let's see now. We have a few more pictures here.
These guys look like brothers right here. And over here, that's me. This is Ben Franklin Junior High School in Broadmoor, 8th grade. This is 1969. This is me, and this is a good buddy of mine. His name is Gary McLean. He just retired about a year and a half ago. He's the former police chief for Daly City.
So it's small town, you kind of know everybody growing up there.
It was hysterical. When I was writing the book, the chief of police for Daly City lived in Broadmoor, but the Broadmoor chief of police lived in Daly City.
And then more high school memories here. Where did you go to high school?
Westmoor High School. And in fact, the name came from Elio Fontano, who was the president of the school board at the time, by combining the words Westlake and Broadmoor. And that's where the term Westmoor came from. And that's a tough guy from 1970. That's me on the football team as a sophomore. I wasn't any good at it, but I had a lot of fun and I learned a lot. And we did win the championship that year. And that's my senior picture from 1973.
Terrific. Now then, here's one of your albums.
Actually, it is a vinyl 45 RPM record.
Oh my gosh.
It's not an album. And anyway,
Shows you what I know.
that's all right, baby. But I had these two pictures on my desk for months, and I never thought I looked like my dad. Until one morning I happened to be doing bills, and I was into my first cup of coffee, and I looked up on top of my roll-top desk, and here's these two pictures. This is my dad from 1937, when he was still a petty officer in the Navy. And I went, oh my God, I am his kid.
That's cute. So it was a lot of fun growing up in Westmoor?
Broadmoor.
Broadmoor.
You knew that was going to happen.
I knew it was going to happen, didn't I say it?
It was a blast growing up in Broadmoor.
Westmoor High School.
Westmoor High School, but Broadmoor Village. It was a small town. Everybody knew everybody. When I was growing up, there was 5 police officers on the Broadmoor Police Department, including the chief. And everybody lived around the corner from everybody. And the worst thing that could happen if you got in trouble with the police is that they'd call your parents. That was the worst thing that could happen.
I guess.
That was worse than going to jail.
But I read something in your book about Grasshopper Hill. What's that?
There's a lot of easements between the houses because there's hills in several sections, and they're just too steep to put houses on. So they left it just trees and shrubs and stuff. And this one hill behind our house on Nimitz Drive, it's actually a triangle between Nimitz Drive, Larchmont, and MacArthur Drive. And all the kids then refer to it as Grasshopper Hill. And it did my heart good when I was researching the book that the kids there still call it Grasshopper Hill.
Okay.
And we'd play Army, we'd play Cowboy, we'd be lost up there for hours conquering the world, hunting gophers.
And then, was there some sort of war game you played?
Oh, we used to play Army. For all of you out there in TV land that remember the TV show Combat, my brother was Rick Jason, the lieutenant, and I was Vic Morrow, the sergeant, and we'd be out there with our cap guns for hours, just.
And then they built City Hall there. Oh,
Well, not on Grasshopper Hill, but that was another area that we'd play Army, and Cowboys was out where Daly City Hall is now, what was then unincorporated Colma, and it was all lettuce and artichoke fields. And we'd be out there from like 9 in the morning till 5 at night, and only stopped because one of the kids, their mom had a bell, like a triangle, on their front porch, and you could hear that thing ringing all the for miles.
right.
It's just like,
Look, I think so that people will understand what we're talking about, I'm going to hold up this map. Show us where Broadmoor is in relationship to Daly City.
okay, well this is a map from about 1967, and Broadmoor is not a city. It's not a town. It's not incorporated. There's no city hall. But they did attempt incorporation in 1967, and you can see here clearly Broadmoor is marked. Colma is down here, the city of Colma, and Daly City, where Westmore High School is now, is right here. And there's this whole yellow patch that's connected. This is the subdivision of Broadmoor Village, and this whole yellow area here is what is known as unincorporated Colma. It's an area of the original community of Colma that was never annexed by the city of Colma.
Well, it helped me too when I saw that 87th Avenue kind of runs through it. Kind of helped me place it. So Dave, going back to your music career, now you are known as a musician. Were you always playing?
Yeah, I was always in choirs and talent shows in grade school, and actually was traumatized when I went to kindergarten, because they tried to get me to sing "Row, Row, Row Your Boat," and I was wanting to sing "Womp Bom Loom Bom," at 4 years old, So much for my sisters and they're contributing to my delinquency. And so, yeah, I always wanted to grow up and be like Little Richard, like Elvis Presley. I didn't want to be them, but I wanted to be like them. And actually, my parents were very influential on my career. My mom used to sing in speakeasies in Boston in the 30s during Prohibition. Wow. And she always told me, David, you want to learn how to write songs, because when you hear Elvis Presley on the radio singing White Christmas, Irving Berlin gets paid. When you hear Frank Sinatra singing it, Irving Berlin still gets paid. So you want to be the writer.
You want to be the well. So now, did you do writing?
Yeah, I all my records and all my CDs, I do my own writing, and I get paid royalties for it. My dad was the biggest influence on my guitar, especially lead guitar, because we used to watch on Saturday mornings this TV show called Blackjack Wayne. It was a local country show. And Dad always pointed out the singers who would be strumming the chords. He says, well, they're pretty good, boy, but you want to watch the guy behind him who's picking the notes. He knows how to play.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a minute and roll a video, a quick little video of your group, you singing in the Jordanettes.
Jordanettes are a couple of my students. One of them is my wife, and they've turned into this little rock and roll group, and we have fun. And they sit in with the band sometimes, but we do acoustic numbers sometimes. So here's a little clip that was actually filmed here in the studio.
Great. Okay, let's see the video.
We've been talking tonight about your ability to donate $30 and get your gift, your membership card, and your CD filled with great music by Pacifica musicians. Well, I got a little something for you. We've got one of those Pacifica musicians in the house right now to perform for you, ladies and gentlemen, Dave Crimmen. Here we go.
Hey, gang. This one's for my first girlfriend, Emily. I was 3 years old. She was 13. Dooby-doo dum 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 doo dum 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 dooby doo dum dum, 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 dum doo dum
forever and a
dum doo dum dooby doo. I want you to know I love you so, dooby doo. Please hold me so tight, dooby doo, all through the night, dooby doo, dum dum, dum doo dum, 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 dooby doo. I waited so long, dooby doo, for your kisses and your love, dooby doo. Please come to me, dooby doo, from up above, dooby doo. I want you to know, dooby doo, I need you so, dooby doo. I need you so much, and dooby doo, wanna feel your warm touch, and dooby doo, dum dum, dum doo dum, 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 dooby doo. Thank you.
Hey, that was great. Thank you, Dave.
Oh, you're
for bringing that.
welcome.
Okay, now back to Broadmoor. I have an interesting picture here that you brought. This is like a satellite picture?
Well, I don't think they had satellites in 1946.
Oh.
But, let's do it this way. There we go. It's all right. We all
okay.
need more coffee. And what you're seeing here is, this is early 1946. This is the very start of the first 3 or 4 roads that would become Broadmoor Village. Over here is what in about 52, 53 would become Westlake Shopping Center. Here's Alamany, what is now John Daly Boulevard. And over here on this side, and this is all farmland, by the way. This is all artichokes and lettuce and flowers and all that kind of stuff. Over here is where Marjorie Tobias Elementary School is, the round school that everybody knows about. And over here, to the south, is a pig ranch owned by the Alsaces. They're like 4 or 5 generations in the Colma area. This old pig ranch that was owned by the Alsaces is now Westmore High School. So when Broadmoor was built in 46, 47, 48, it literally was out in the middle of nowhere. There was really nothing out there. And so that was a beautiful picture that I was allowed to use for the book.
Terrific.
That's an aerial photo.
Very, very nice. Now here's some interesting differences between Daly City and Broadmoor.
One way you can find out if you're in Broadmoor or not, can we zoom in on this, guys? Right about here. When you're in Broadmoor, most of the curbs are round like this. The moment you get into Daly City, they turn square. And this pole right here is the sign that says "Welcome to Daly City." This is at the west end of 87th Street. In 1946, the road literally stopped right here, and all this was shrubs and brush, deer, gophers, and raccoons.
So is this a way that Broadmoor people show their independence by having these different curbs?
Well, Broadmoor was built before Daly City,
Oh,
and I couldn't find any reason or evidence at the county courthouse for it, except that one is county land and one is city land, and so the ordinances are probably different.
I see.
Here's another way: if you're in the middle of Daly City, or you think you're in the middle of Daly City, here's one way to find out that you're in Broadmoor and not Daly City. When you're in Broadmoor, here's the street signs at the 7-Eleven on 87th Street. It's at the corner of 87th and Ellsworth, and the street signs are green. That's Broadmoor. But 1 block away at Ellsworth and 88, the signs turn blue. That's Daly City.
Great.
So a lot of folks who live in Broadmoor think they're in Daly City because over the years Daly City has annexed all the lands around it, but it's really not part of Daly City.
So do you think this would be a good time to show these maps?
Oh,
you
yes,
brought?
yes. I want to thank Dana and Mark and Bunny Gillespie at the Daly City History Museum for loaning this out. Up here, what you've got is a map of Daly City from 1929. This is the original what Daly City was when it incorporated in 1911. Up here is the county line. Now on the bottom here is a map from 1992, so it's fairly current. This green area here is the same thing as this. This is what Daly City originally was. So all this yellow area here is what Daly City has grown into since then. Pacifica's down here. The city of Colma's over here. This big blue chunk right here, that's Broadmoor Village.
Oh.
That's Broadmoor Village. That's unincorporated. They have refused to be annexed by Daly City since 1946. And they are the only unincorporated district in the entire state with their own police force. And so what I did was I blew that up. In the white here is Broadmoor Village. All this blue stuff is Daly City. If you want to find out if you're in Broadmoor or not, can we get a close-up of this one, guys? This is what used to be called Vista Del Mar. It is now Marjorie Tobias Elementary School. That is on the west side. Up here to the north, I think you all know Westlake Shopping Center. Okay. To the east is Daly City City Hall. It's only 2 blocks to the east of Broadmoor property. Down here to the south, 1 block across the street from Broadmoor Village is Westmoor High School. And again, that's why they call it Westmoor High School, because it was for Westlake and Broadmoor. And that's so I will now be petitioning the school district to change the name of the high school from Westmoor to Broad Lake, because the aerial photos show that Broadmoor was there years before Westlake was.
Hey,
We got
seems
seniority.
fair. I noticed in your book that the introduction was written by Quentin Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did that ever come about?
Quentin Kopp was a state senator at the time, and Daly City had done a lot of piecemeal annexing, encircling Broadmoor and threatening their existence and trying to force, through loopholes in annexation laws, trying to force Broadmoor to surrender and become part of Daly City. Well, Quentin Kopp was a state senator at the time. There was talk about them incorporating, and he was thinking about being the district attorney or the attorney for Broadmoor if it ever came to be, which it didn't. But when he became a state senator, he introduced and got passed legislation that forced Daly City's hand. Up until that point, LAFCO laws stated that if there were 12 or less people living on a parcel of land, it was by law uninhabited and could be claimed by Daly City without any vote or recourse. And Quentin Kopp saved Broadmoor literally by introducing law and putting into law that no more of Broadmoor can be annexed without the full entire consent of all the population of Broadmoor. So he actually saved the unincorporated district.
I see.
And I networked him through a couple of friends, and he decided to do the forward for me.
Well, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Very nice. And I forgot to mention, the audience is probably wondering, what's the change in the outfit?
Well, you guys, Kathleen asked me to bring some personal stuff. So this is my block jacket from Westmoor High School, which still fits. And, football, wrestling, track, and a few other things. Again, I wasn't any good at them, but I had a lot of fun and learned a lot about life and about how to run a rock and roll band. It's kind of like being on a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple other questions. Who were the Stoneson brothers?
Stoneson brothers were to Broadmoor Village what Dolger was to Daly City. They were builders, constructors. They were originally from Canada, graduates of Washington State University, and they were contemporaries of Dolger and built many of the subdivisions of the area. In fact, you've heard of Stonestown. That's named after the Stoneson brothers. They built Stonestown at the same time they were building Broadmoor.
So are their houses similar?
You mean Stoneson houses to
Yeah,
Dolger's?
Stoneson houses and Dolger houses. Can you tell them apart? Would you know?
You can, when you take a good look, you can definitely tell them apart. That folk song, Little Houses made of ticky-tacky little boxes,
Yeah.
those are Dolger houses.
Yeah.
And you can tell that they really look like boxes. The Stoneson houses are more ranch-style single-level houses that have a little more variety to them.
Okay. tell us about the police. You mentioned earlier that you have your own police force, or Broadmoor has their own police force.
Broadmoor Village is the only unincorporated district in the entire state of California that has its own police force in 1948. Because they come under county jurisdiction, the county police had to respond to calls, and they're in Redwood City. And 101 was not a freeway at the time. It was a 2-lane highway, one going north and one going south. It took the police about an hour and 15 minutes to respond to calls. So the Property Owners Association petitioned the state to get their own police force, and so they did.
So do they just, how big is it?
The Broadmoor Police Force, I don't know specifically, but they've got about 25 or 30 officers, male and female.
Wow.
And they not only cover what is now Broadmoor, but they cover 2 other islands of unincorporated territory, which is still technically unincorporated Colma. They also are first call for the Colma BART station. Oh. A lot of the ironies, it's Colma BART station that actually is in Daly City's boundaries, but it's state property, but it's patrolled by the Broadmoor Police Department. It's just one of those silly things. We'll have to get into it in another show.
Very good. So you said, were there some restrictive rules? I thought that was interesting when Broadmoor was first came into being.
If you do your history on a lot of CCNRs and rules and regulations of subdivisions, I dug them up, and the ones that were written in 1948, 1951, in this day and age would be incredibly politically incorrect.
Yeah. Right.
We'll just put it that way.
We'll put it that way. And then what about taxes?
Well, the reason that Broadmoor never incorporated it is because they didn't want their taxes raised, which is a real big reason why there was a real battle here in the Pacifica area for Pacifica's incorporation. There was a lot of folks that didn't want their taxes raised. And for police departments, fire departments, which is needed. And Pacifica overcame their differences to fight off San Bruno, which was annexing lands and wanting to do things that were not in Pacifica's interest. And Broadmoor had similar issues with the city of Daly City, but never really got around to banding together and settling their differences to become a town.
Wow. This has been so interesting. We're glad that you have decided to make Pacifica your home and that you're a member of the Pacifica Historical Society.
Well, thank you guys.
And I mentioned, go ahead.
I never realized I was a historian before. Everybody said so, but I just...
You are one. You are one. So just real quick, Dave has got 2 books coming out. He's got one coming out on Colma Then and Now, and one on... Daly City Then and Now.
Coming out
Thank you.
In May of 2011, co-written with Bunny Gillespie, who started the Daly City History Guild. That'll be out this year, and the Colma book should be out next year sometime.
Great. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. And this is from the Pacifica Historical Society. If you'd like to get involved in any of our projects, we are at Box 752 Pacifica, and you can call 650-359-5462, and find us on the web at pacificahistory.org. Thank you.